October 1945. World War II ended 5 months ago. Germany lies in ruins. 12 million German soldiers surrendered to Allied forces. 400,000 of them now sit in American prison camps scattered across the United States. Among them, 43 women. Former Wehrmacht auxiliaries, communications specialists, radio operators, administrative personnel. They have been shipped across the Atlantic Ocean to a place called Camp Ruston, Louisiana. They have been told Americans will rape them, beat them, starve them, work them to death. They have believed Nazi propaganda for 12 years. They are about to discover everything was a lie. This is the story of Elena Hartman, a 24-year-old former communications officer from Berlin, and James Sullivan, a 25-year-old farm boy from Georgia, who lost his brother to German bullets 3 months before the war ended. What happens between them will prove that kindness is the most devastating weapon ever created. No bullets required. Elena's legs buckled when the train doors opened. 3 days. 3 days cramped in a cattle car with 42 other women. No sleep. Watery soup twice. Hard bread that cut her gums. She grabbed the doorframe, held on, refused to fall. Louisiana hit her like a fist. The heat, the humidity, the air so thick she could drink it. Nothing like Berlin. Nothing like the cold gray rubble she had left behind. Guards lined the platform. Young Americans in pressed uniforms. They carried rifles. They watched the women stumble out one by one. Elena scanned their faces, looking for cruelty, looking for the brutality she had been promised. She found nothing. Just tired young men doing a job. Move forward, single file. The command came in broken German. An officer with a clipboard. He pointed toward a whitewashed building in the distance. Elena walked. Her torn uniform hung loose on her starved frame. The collar flapped open where the stitching had ripped during processing in France. Cold air hit her exposed collarbone. She wrapped her arms around herself, kept walking. The red-haired soldier appeared from nowhere. She did not see him approach. One moment she was walking. The next moment, hands were reaching for her collar. Elena screamed, "Please don't hurt me!" The words exploded from her chest, raw, desperate, pathetic. Every warning she had ever received about American brutality crashed through her mind in one white-hot second. The soldier jumped backward. His hands flew up. Palms out, fingers spread. His face went pale beneath the freckles. Ma'am, I'm just trying to help." Elena stood frozen, trembling, her heart slamming against her ribs. "That tear." He pointed at her collar, did not touch. "It's going to get worse in the cold. I wanted to see if—" He trailed off, looked down at his boots, looked back up. "I'm sorry. I should have asked first." Elena stared at him. This boy, this enemy, this American who was supposed to rape and kill and torture. He was apologizing. To her. A prisoner. "I am—" Elena's English came out rusty, broken. "I am not understanding." "Private Jim Sullivan." He touched his chest. Spoke slowly. "From Georgia. I'm here to help you ladies get settled. Nobody's going to hurt you." He paused. "You got my word on that." His accent was thick, honey slow. His eyes were green, kind, impossibly dangerously kind. Elena nodded once, did not trust her voice. Sullivan smiled, brief, genuine. It transformed his face entirely. "All right then. Let's get you inside before you melt in this heat." He walked ahead. Elena followed, her mind spinning, trying to reconcile propaganda with reality. The processing building was cool inside. Ceiling fans turned slowly overhead. Windows stood open. Fresh air moved through the space. And the smell. Elena stopped walking. Bread, coffee, meat cooking somewhere nearby. Her stomach cramped so violently she doubled over. When had she last eaten a real meal? Months, maybe longer. In Berlin during the final days there had been nothing. Potato peels, sawdust bread, rumors of food that never came. A female officer approached. Gray hair, round spectacles, medical insignia on her uniform. Elena Hartman. Elena straightened, nodded. I'm Captain Morrison. I need to do a quick health check. It won't take long. The examination room was small and white. Elena sat on a paper-covered table while the doctor listened to her heart, checked her eyes, examined her scalp for lice. You're malnourished. Captain Morrison's voice was gentle. But you're going to be okay. We'll get some weight back on you. Elena said nothing, waited for the cruelty to start. It never came. Instead, the doctor handed her a bundle of clothes, a cotton dress with small white flowers, clean undergarments, a cream-colored cardigan that smelled like lavender. Your uniform is pretty worn out. These are donated from local churches. Elena took the clothes. The fabric was soft against her cracked palms. There's a shower facility next door. Hot water, soap, shampoo. Take your time. Hot water. Elena had not felt hot water in over a year. She walked to the shower facility in a daze, stepped into a tiled stall, pulled the curtain closed, turned the handle. Steam rose around her. Heat poured over her skin. Actual heat. Not lukewarm, not cold, hot enough to turn her pink, hot enough to make her gasp. Elena pressed her hands against the tiles, dropped her head, let the water run over her. And then she was crying. Great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. She pressed her fist against her mouth, tried to muffle the sounds, but the tears kept coming, pouring out of her like the water from the shower head. She cried for Carl, her brother, dead on the Eastern Front. Body never recovered. She cried for her father, missing somewhere in the Soviet zone, probably dead. She cried for her mother, alone in a Berlin basement, trading wedding rings for bread. She cried for herself, for the girl she had been before the war, for everything she had lost, for everything she might never find again. When she finally turned off the water, she caught her reflection in the mirror. A stranger stared back. Thin, hollow-eyed, but clean. She dressed slowly in the donated clothes. The cotton dress hung loose on her frame. The cardigan wrapped around her like an embrace. She looked almost human again. The mess hall broke her completely. Elena stopped in the doorway, stared at the tables groaning with food, mashed potatoes with butter melting into golden pools, green beans that were actually green, meatloaf still steaming, rolls soft as clouds, coffee with real cream, and pies, apple pies with golden crusts. A soldier handed her a tray, loaded it with food, more food than she had seen in months. Elena carried it to a table, sat down, picked up her fork. The first bite of meatloaf made her dizzy. Rich, savory, overwhelming. She ate slowly, forced herself. The doctor had warned her about eating too fast. Around her, other women were losing control, shoveling food into their mouths, crying, laughing. One woman vomited from eating too quickly. Elena reached for the apple pie. One bite. Cinnamon, sugar, butter. The sweetness exploded on her tongue, and suddenly she could not swallow. Her mother was eating potato peels right now. Her father was starving in a Soviet camp. Her brother was rotting in an unmarked grave, and she was eating apple pie. Elena set down her fork, pushed the tray away, pressed her hands against her face. "It's okay to cry, ma'am." She looked up. Sullivan stood beside her table, holding out a white handkerchief. "I reckon you got a lot to cry about." His voice was impossibly gentle. "But you're safe here. You're fed, and nobody's going to hurt you." Elena took the handkerchief, embroidered initials in the corner. JSS. "Why?" Her voice cracked. "Why are you being kind? We are enemy." Sullivan pulled out a chair, sat down across from her. "Ma'am, we ain't your enemy. We never were." He leaned forward. "We were fighting a war against your leaders, not against you." Elena shook her head. I worked for Wehrmacht. I transmitted orders. I helped kill your soldiers. You did what you were told to survive, same as all of us. But your people, your soldiers, they died because of orders I sent. Sullivan's face changed. Something flickered behind his eyes. Pain, old and deep. My brother died in March. His voice dropped. Near Berlin, 3 months before the war ended. Elena's blood turned to ice. I am sorry. I am so sorry. I was in Berlin then. In communications bunker. My work could have... Stop. Sullivan held up his hand. Miss Hartman, look at me. She forced herself to meet his eyes. You didn't kill David. The war did. The hate did. The machine that ground up boys from Georgia and girls from Berlin and made corpses of all of them. He reached into his wallet, pulled out a photograph. A family portrait. 2 young men grinning at the camera. That's David, my baby brother. Elena looked at the photo, at the smiling boy who was now dead. When they told me I'd be working with German prisoners, I was angry. Sullivan's voice stayed steady. I thought I'd hate you all. Thought it would be easy. He tucked the photo away. But then, I saw you ladies get off that train. Scared. Starving. Broken. And I thought, David wouldn't want me to hate. Elena could not speak. If I hate you, then David died for nothing. Sullivan stood up. But if I can show kindness despite my loss, maybe that's how we stop the machine. He walked away, left her sitting there with his handkerchief and the cold apple pie and the crushing weight of everything she had believed shattering into pieces. That night, Elena lay in her bunk. Clean sheets, warm blanket, a pillow that smelled like soap. This prison was better than her apartment in Berlin. The thought should have made her angry. Instead, it terrified her. Because if the Americans were not monsters, then who was? If the propaganda about enemy brutality was false, what else had been lies? Elena stared at the ceiling. The questions multiplied in the darkness. What if the master race was just a story? What if German superiority was just an excuse? What if 12 years of her life had been built on nothing but lies? The answers were too horrifying to consider. So she closed her eyes, pulled the blanket tight, tried to sleep. But sleep would not come, because somewhere in the back of her mind a wall was cracking, a wall that had protected her from doubt for 12 years. A wall built from propaganda and fear and desperate need to believe her suffering meant something. Private James Sullivan had put the first crack in that wall, and Elena suspected he was not finished. Tomorrow would bring new kindness, new confusion, new questions she was not ready to answer. But tonight, she was warm, she was clean, she was fed, and for the first time since the war began, she was not afraid. That terrified her most of all. In part 2 letters arrive from starving Germany. Elena's guilt threatens to destroy her. A fierce Nazi true believer named Katharina Becker rallies resistance against American kindness. And Christmas dinner forces every woman in Camp Rustin to choose hold onto hate or accept the devastating truth that their enemies are human. The psychological war is just beginning. October 1945. Camp Rustin, Louisiana. 43 German women arrived expecting torture. They found hot showers, clean clothes, apple pie. Private James Sullivan lost his brother to German bullets. He chose kindness anyway. Elena Hartman, former Wehrmacht communications officer, felt her worldview cracking. The propaganda was wrong. The enemy was human. But accepting American kindness felt like betrayal. Now, 6 weeks later, the real battle begins. Not between nations, between beliefs. Because one woman refuses to break. One woman clings to the old hatred like a drowning sailor grips driftwood. And she is about to force every prisoner in Camp Rustin to choose a side. Her name is Katharina Becker, wife of an SS administrator. True believer to her bones. She has watched Elena laugh with the Americans, watched her eat their food without guilt, watched her learn their language like an eager student. And she has had enough. Katharina stood in the mess hall doorway, watching, counting, cataloging every act of collaboration. Elena sat with Private Sullivan. They were practicing English phrases. She was smiling at the enemy. Disgusting. 6 weeks of hot meals and clean sheets. 6 weeks of American propaganda disguised as charity. And these weak women were already forgetting who they were, what they had fought for, what their brothers and fathers had died defending. Katharina had not forgotten. She still wore her Wehrmacht uniform, patched it herself, washed it by hand every week. While the others paraded around in donated American dresses like whores accepting payment, she maintained her dignity. Her husband Heinrich had believed in the Reich until his last breath. Her son Matthias, 14 years old, was somewhere in the Soviet zone. She had not heard from him in months. She would not betray their memory by eating apple pie with the enemy. Greta Wolf approached Katharina's table, set down her tray, sat without asking permission. "You are planning something." Katharina did not look up. "I am observing." "You are recruiting." Greta kept her voice low. "I have seen you talking to the older women, the ones who lost sons. You are building a faction. I am reminding them who they are. Who we are." Greta leaned forward. "Prisoners, Katharina. We are prisoners. The war is over. We lost." "The war is never over." Katharina finally met her eyes. "They are breaking us with kindness, erasing our identity. In 6 months, these women will not remember they are German." "Perhaps that is not entirely bad." Katharina's hand slammed the table. Trays rattled, heads turned. "Your husband died on the Eastern Front, Greta. Your son died at Stalingrad. And you sit here eating American meatloaf like it means nothing." Greta's face went pale, then hard. "My family is dead, Katharina. Nothing I do here will bring them back. Nothing I refuse to eat will resurrect them." "But your honor." "My honor?" Greta laughed, bitter, sharp. "What honor? We followed orders that killed millions. We believed lies that destroyed our country. What honor is left to protect?" Katharina stood, looked down at Greta with contempt. "You are lost, but not everyone is. There are still true Germans in this camp, and soon they will remember." She walked away. 6 women followed her, her loyal core, the true believers. Greta watched them go, then looked across the room at Elena still practicing English with the red-haired American. A storm was coming. She could feel it. But she did not yet know how devastating it would be. Elena received her first letter from home on a gray November morning. Captain Morrison handed her the thin envelope personally. German postmark. Mother's handwriting on the front. Shaky. Uncertain. Nothing like the confident script Elena remembered. She carried it to her bunk, sat down, held it for a long moment. As long as the letter stayed sealed, her mother was alive. Her family was surviving. Reality could not intrude, but she could not leave it closed forever. She slid her finger under the flap, pulled out the single sheet of cheap gray paper. "My dearest Elena, I do not know if this letter will reach you. I do not even know if you are alive." Elena's hands began to shake. "The city is ruins. We live in the basement with 3 other families. There is no heat, no electricity most days. We eat what we can find. Yesterday your Aunt Gertrude traded her wedding ring for half a loaf of bread." A sound escaped Elena's throat. Not quite a sob. Not quite a scream. "Your father is still missing. We pray he is alive somewhere in the Soviet zone. We fear the worst. Karl's grave is somewhere on the Eastern Front. We will never find it. We will never bring him home." Tears blurred the words. Elena wiped her eyes, kept reading. "If you are receiving this, if you are safe, I thank God. Do not worry about us. We will survive. We always do. Know that I love you. Know that I am proud of you. Come home to us when you can. Your loving mother, Anna. Elena folded the letter, carefully, precisely, tucked it under her pillow. Then she walked to the mess hall, looked at the dinner waiting for her. Meatloaf, potatoes, green beans, apple pie. Her mother was trading wedding rings for bread. Elena turned around, walked back to her bunk, did not eat. The next day she skipped breakfast. The day after she ate only bread. Nothing else. Sullivan noticed on the fourth day. Miss Hartman, you're getting thin again. Elena kept her eyes on the floor. I am not hungry. That's a lie and we both know it. She looked up, found his green eyes watching her with concern. My mother is starving. The words came out flat, dead. She has no food, no heat, no hope. How can I eat when she is dying? Sullivan sat down across from her, took a long breath. Ma'am, I understand. I do. But you starving yourself ain't going to feed your mama. It's just going to make two people hungry instead of one. You do not understand. I lost David. His voice hardened. My baby brother, 22 years old, so don't tell me I don't understand loss. Elena flinched. I am sorry, I did not mean. You need to stay strong. Sullivan leaned forward. So when this war is finally over, when you can go home, you'll be healthy enough to help her. You see, Elena saw. She knew he was right. But knowing and accepting were different things. It is hard. Her voice dropped to a whisper. To be treated so well by the enemy. Harder than being treated badly would be. Sullivan nodded slowly. Hate's easier than kindness. Kindness makes you think, makes you question. He stood, pushed her untouched tray closer. Eat, Miss Hartman. Not for yourself, for your mama, so you can go home and save her. Elena picked up her fork, took one bite of meatloaf. It tasted like guilt, but she swallowed it anyway. Across the room, Katerina watched, made notes, added Elena to her list of the corrupted. The battle lines were forming. December brought Christmas preparations. The Americans decorated everything. Pine trees with electric lights, paper chains made by local schoolchildren, carols playing constantly on the radio, and the food. Dear God, the food. Turkey, ham glazed with honey, sweet potatoes covered in marshmallows, pies enough to feed an army. Every table groaned under the weight of abundance. The women filed in slowly, uncertainly, not quite believing what they were seeing. Elena stood in the doorway, taking it in, the decorations, the food, the American soldiers smiling and wishing everyone Merry Christmas in broken German. Then came the gifts. Volunteers from town carried in boxes filled with small packages, wrapped in newspaper, tied with string. Each package had a handwritten card attached. From a friend in Ruston, Merry Christmas. May you find peace. An American officer called out names. Women came forward to claim their gifts. Some gasped. Some cried. Some laughed like they had forgotten how. Elena received hers, felt the weight of it in her hands, carried it back to her table. Inside was a pair of cream-colored mittens, a bar of lavender soap, a small bottle of perfume that smelled like roses. Someone she had never met had taken time to choose these things. For her, a prisoner, an enemy. Then Katharina stood up. Her chair scraped against the floor. The sound cut through the room like a gunshot. Every head turned. Katharina held her unopened package high. Her face was white with fury. This is bribery. Her voice rang through the silent mess hall. Psychological warfare. They try to buy our souls with soap and mittens. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. While our families starve in the ruins we created, we sit here eating turkey like guests, not prisoners. Katharina's voice rose higher. We accept gifts from strangers while our mothers trade wedding rings for bread. Elena felt the words like physical blows. Each one landed in her chest. Have you all forgotten who you are? Have you forgotten what we fought for? Katharina raised the package above her head. I refuse this. I refuse to be corrupted. She threw it to the ground. The glass perfume bottle inside shattered. The smell of roses filled the air. Sweet, cloying, suddenly sickening. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Elena stood. Her legs carried her forward before her mind could stop them. She walked until she faced Katharina across the broken glass. Katharina. Her voice shook but held. I understand your anger. I feel it too. Then act on it. Katharina's eyes blazed. Stand with me. Refuse their poison. These people are not our enemies. Then what are they? Katharina stepped closer. What do you call the nation that bombed our cities, killed our brothers, destroyed everything we loved? Elena took a breath. The words that came out surprised even her. The real enemy was the lie we were sold. That hate makes us strong. That kindness is weakness. That some lives matter more than others. Katharina's face contorted with rage. Your brother Carl died fighting Americans. Would he call you wise, or would he call you traitor? The question hit Elena like a fist. For a moment, she could not breathe, could not think, could only see Carl's face. Young, grinning, forever frozen at 19. Then Greta stood. My brother is dead too. Her voice was calm, steady. My husband, my son, all dead. She walked over to stand beside Elena. And you know what I think they would say? I think they would say, live. Survive. Do not let hate destroy what is left of you. Katharina looked around the room, seeking support, seeking validation. 3 of her 6 followers would not meet her eyes. One of them, an older woman named Elsa, slowly opened her package, took out the mittens inside, held them like they were made of gold. Young Clara, sitting at a nearby table, clutched her package to her chest. Tears rolled down her face. Traitors, Katharina hissed. All of you. She turned and walked out. 2 women followed her, but 4 remained. The room stayed silent for a long moment. Then Sullivan stepped forward, bent down, carefully picked up the broken perfume bottle. Ma'am. He spoke to the room, not just to Katharina's retreating back. Nobody's forcing you to accept anything, but these gifts aren't from the government. They're from regular folks in town. Church ladies, shopkeepers, families who heard there were women here who lost everything. He stood, held the broken pieces. They just wanted to help. That's all. Elena looked at the shattered glass in his hands, at the rose perfume soaking into the floor. Hate had broken something beautiful today, but it had not won. Over the next weeks, something shifted in Camp Rustin. The women who had followed Katharina began to drift away, one by one, drawn by hot meals, clean sheets, the simple human dignity of being treated like people instead of prisoners. Katharina grew more isolated, more bitter, more desperate. She stopped eating with the others, stopped attending English classes, stopped speaking to anyone except her last 2 loyal followers. Elena watched her from across the mess hall, saw the hollowness growing behind her eyes. She is breaking, Greta observed one evening. Not toward us, inward, collapsing on herself. Can we help her? I do not know. Some walls are too thick to breach from outside. In late January, Katharina received her own letter from home. Elena heard the sound from outside the barracks, a low animal keen that seemed to come from somewhere deep in the earth. She found Katharina collapsed behind the building, crumpled paper in her hand, body shaking with sobs so violent they seemed to tear her apart. Elena knelt beside her, did not touch, just waited. My husband, Katharina finally managed. Executed by Soviets. War crimes. Elena said nothing, let her continue. My son, 14 years old, sent to labor camp. They do not know where. Her voice broke completely. I believed so completely that we were right, that we were building something glorious. She looked up at Elena with eyes that were shattered. But Heinrich was not executed for building glory. He was executed for ordering deaths, for signing warrants, for crimes I did not want to see. Elena sat down beside her in the dirt. We all believe the lie, Katharina. We are all guilty. We are all victims. Both things are true. How do you live with it? The guilt and the gratitude fighting inside you. Elena thought of Sullivan, of David's photograph, of kindness chosen despite loss. I remember that I am human, and humans can change. The next day, Katharina attended English class for the first time. She still wore her Wehrmacht uniform, still kept her distance, still carried her grief like armor. But she was trying, and trying was enough. February brought the first hints of spring. Trees began to bud. Flowers pushed through the earth with stubborn determination. Elena had gained back 15 pounds. Her face had filled out. Her hair shone in the sunlight. But more importantly, something inside her had changed. She caught her reflection in a window one afternoon. Stopped. Stared. The woman looking back was healthy, clean, calm. She looked like someone who belonged here, in this moment, in this peace. She looked almost American. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like freedom. That evening she found Sullivan in the garden behind the administrative building. I need to tell you something. He looked up, smiled. What's on your mind? I am pregnant. His face changed. Concern, surprise, then warmth. The father, dead or missing. I will never see him again. I am alone. Sullivan shook his head. Miss Hartman, you ain't alone. You got us. He stood, looked at her directly. We'll make sure you and that baby are taken care of. Elena felt tears threatening, pushed them back. Why do you keep helping me, after everything? Sullivan smiled. That same gentle smile from the first day. Because that's what humans do, ma'am, when they remember how. The news spread through camp. A baby. New life. Born from the ashes of the old world. Even Katharina contributed, knitting small garments with fierce concentration. The child became a symbol. Proof that the future was not just ruins and regret. But with hope came the knowledge that Elena would eventually have to go home. To face the rubble. To find her mother. To build a new Germany from the ashes of the old. And she was not yet ready. Because a telegram was coming. Red Cross official. Words that would shatter what remained of her old life. And force her to finally completely let go. In Part 3, devastating news arrives from the Soviet zone. Elena must choose between grief and hope. Katharina faces her final transformation. And Private Sullivan reveals what he has been planning since the moment Elena first screamed in the processing yard. The kindness was never random. It was calculated, and its true purpose is about to be revealed. October 1945. 43 German women arrived at Camp Ruston expecting torture. They found kindness. Private James Sullivan lost his brother to German bullets. He chose grace over vengeance. Elena Hartman watched her ideology crack under the weight of hot showers and apple pie. Katharina Becker, the fiercest true believer, finally broke when she learned her husband had been executed for war crimes. Her son was lost in a Soviet labor camp. By February 1946, the women had transformed. They ate American food without guilt. They spoke English phrases. They laughed with their former enemies. But Elena carried a secret, a child growing inside her. A future she was not ready to face. Now in early March, a telegram is coming. Red Cross official. Words that will shatter what remains of her old life and force her to finally completely choose who she wants to become. The telegram arrived on a Tuesday morning, Captain Morrison found Elena in the administrative office. Her face was somber, professional, but her eyes held something else. Pity. "Miss Hartman, I need you to come with me." Elena set down the file she was organizing, stood, followed without asking why. She already knew. Letters from Germany had stopped 3 weeks ago. Her mother's last note had been hopeful. Ernst might be alive. Rumors of prisoner exchanges. Soviet camps releasing some Germans. But hope in 1946, Germany was a fragile thing. Morrison led her to the medical building. Private office. 2 chairs. A desk with a single piece of paper on it. "Please sit." Elena sat. Her hands found her belly automatically. The baby kicked. 5 months along now. Impossible to hide. Morrison handed her the telegram. Red Cross, official communication. Ernst Hartmann, prisoner number 4719. Deceased, February 1946. Soviet labor camp, Sachsenhausen. Death from malnutrition and typhus. Remains unrecovered. February, 1 month ago. While Elena had been eating 3 meals a day. While she had been laughing at Sullivan's jokes. While she had been learning English and gaining weight and feeling her baby kick. Her father had been starving to death in a Soviet camp. The telegram fell from her fingers. "Miss Hartman, Elena, can you hear me?" Morrison's voice came from far away. Another world. A world where fathers did not die alone in frozen camps, while their daughters ate apple pie. "I need air." Elena stood, walked out, did not run. Running would mean feeling, and she could not feel this, not yet, maybe not ever. She found herself behind the barracks, the same spot where Katharina had collapsed months ago, where grief had broken the fiercest woman in the camp. Now it was Elena's turn. She did not scream, did not cry, just stood there, staring at nothing. Her father was dead. Karl was dead. Her mother was alone in Berlin, starving, freezing, waiting for a daughter who was growing fat on enemy food. And Elena was pregnant, carrying a child into a world of ashes and graves. The baby kicked again, insistent, alive. Elena pressed both hands against her belly. "What am I supposed to do?" she whispered to the child who could not answer. "What am I supposed to be?" Sullivan found her an hour later, still standing, still staring, still not crying. "I heard." His voice was quiet. "I'm so sorry." Elena did not look at him. "February. He died in February." "I know. While I was here, safe, fed, happy." The word came out like poison. "I was happy while my father starved to death." Sullivan stepped closer, not touching, just present. "That ain't your fault." "I forgot him." Elena's voice cracked. "For weeks at a time, I forgot I even had a father. I was too busy learning English, too busy eating your apple pie, too busy being grateful to the enemy." "Elena, do not call me that." She finally turned. Her eyes were dry, burning. "You do not get to call me that. You are the enemy. Your country bombed my city. Your soldiers killed my people. And I have been thanking you for it." Sullivan's face did not change, did not harden, did not show hurt. "You're right," he said simply. "We bombed your cities. We killed your people. And you transmitted orders that killed ours. We're both covered in blood, Miss Hartman. Both of us." "Then why?" Elena's voice rose. "Why the kindness? Why the hot showers and the apple pie and the gifts from strangers? What do you want from us?" "Nothing." "Liar." Sullivan took a breath. "Let it out slowly. You want to know the truth. The real truth about why we treat you this way." Elena waited, fists clenched, ready to hate whatever came next. The army calls it re-education. They think if we show you kindness, you'll stop believing in the Reich. You'll go home and tell everyone the Americans weren't monsters. You'll help rebuild Germany as our ally instead of our enemy." Elena laughed, bitter, sharp. "So it is manipulation. Propaganda with better food." "That's what the army thinks, yes." Sullivan stepped closer. "But that ain't why I do it." "Then why?" "Because David would have wanted me to." The name hung in the air. David, the dead brother, the ghost that walked between them. "I could hate you." Sullivan's voice dropped. "I could hate every German I meet for the rest of my life. And you know what, nobody would blame me. I earned that hate. I paid for it with my brother's blood." He reached into his pocket, pulled out the worn photograph. Two brothers grinning at the camera. "But hate is easy, Miss Hartman. Hate is what started this whole damn war. Hate is what killed David and Carl and your father, and millions of others." He held up the photograph. "If I hate you, then David died for nothing. Just another body in a pile of bodies. But if I can choose different, if I can look at my enemy and see a person instead of a target." His voice cracked. First time Elena had ever heard it waver. "Then maybe David's death means something. Maybe all those deaths mean something. Maybe we can actually build a world where brothers don't have to kill each other anymore." Elena stared at him. At this farm boy from Georgia who had lost everything and chosen grace anyway. "How?" she whispered. "How do you do it? How do you forgive?" Sullivan put the photograph away. "I don't forgive what happened. I'll never forgive the war. I'll never forgive the men who started it or the lies they told." He met her eyes directly. "But I can forgive you. Because you're not the war. You're just someone who got caught in it. Same as me, same as David, same as everyone." Elena felt something break inside her chest. Not crack, not fracture. Break. All the walls she had built, all the ideology she had absorbed, all the hate she had been taught, and the guilt she had carried, and the desperate need to believe her suffering meant something. It all broke at once. And finally, she cried. Great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. She collapsed against Sullivan's chest, and he held her. Just held her. Let her cry out 5 months of confusion and grief and impossible gratitude. "My father is dead. I know. My brother is dead. I know. I have no country, no home, no family except my mother who is dying in Berlin. And I am carrying a child I never wanted into a world that has nothing left." Sullivan's arms tightened around her. "You got family, Miss Hartman. You got 42 sisters in those barracks who survived the same hell you did. You got me. You got everyone in this camp who chose to see you as human." He pulled back, looked at her face. "And you got that baby. That child is going to need a mother who knows the difference between hate and love. A mother who can teach them that the world doesn't have to be the way it was." Elena wiped her eyes, pressed her hand against her belly. "What if I fail? What if I teach them wrong?" "Then you try again. That's all any of us can do." That night, Elena did not go to her bunk. She sat in the recreation hall, alone, thinking. Greta found her at midnight. "You should sleep." "I cannot." Greta sat down beside her, said nothing, just waited. "Sullivan told me the truth." Elena spoke to the darkness. About why they treat us this way. The army calls it re-education. Psychological warfare with kindness instead of torture. "I know." Elena turned. "You know." "I figured it out months ago." Greta shrugged. "It does not matter." "How can it not matter? They are manipulating us." "Are they?" Greta leaned back in her chair. "They give us food. We eat it. They give us clothes. We wear them. They treat us with dignity. We accept it. Where is the manipulation? They want to change how we think. And have they succeeded?" Elena opened her mouth, closed it. Had they succeeded? 6 months ago, she had believed Americans were brutal savages, that Germans were the master race, that the Reich had been fighting for a glorious cause. Now she knew those were lies, all of them. But was that manipulation? Or was it simply truth? The propaganda we grew up with. Greta continued quietly. That was manipulation. They told us lies, and we believed them because we had no other information. The Americans are showing us a different reality. They are letting us see for ourselves that everything we believed was wrong. But their motives are irrelevant. Greta cut her off. What matters is what is true. Is it true that Americans are brutal monsters? No. We have seen evidence. Is it true that kindness is weakness? No. Sullivan lost his brother and chose grace anyway. Is it true that Germans are superior to all other races? She gestured around the room. Look at us. 43 women who believed we were the master race. We are survivors. Nothing more, nothing less. Just human beings who made terrible mistakes and are now trying to live with them. Elena sat with this for a long moment. So what do we do when we go home? What do we tell people? Greta smiled, tired but genuine. We tell them the truth, that the enemy fed us when they could have starved us, that they clothed us when they could have left us naked, that they treated us with dignity when they had every right to treat us with contempt. She reached over, took Elena's hand, and we tell them that kindness won, that in the end, the Americans defeated us not with bombs and bullets, but with apple pie and clean sheets, and the simple revolutionary idea that all human beings deserve basic dignity. Elena felt tears threatening again, pushed them back. What about the guilt my father died while I was here? Safe, fed, growing fat while he starved. Greta squeezed her hand. Your father would not want you to suffer for surviving. He would want you to live, to raise that baby, to build something better than what we destroyed. How do you know? Because that is what all parents want for their children, even German parents, even parents who believed terrible lies. Elena looked down at her belly, at the child growing inside her, a daughter. She had decided it would be a daughter, Sophia, wisdom, born from suffering. I want to raise her differently, Elena said quietly. I want to teach her that people are people, no matter where they come from. Then do it. Greta stood. Start tomorrow. Start by finishing your English lessons. Start by thanking Sullivan for his kindness without guilt. Start by being the mother that child deserves. She walked to the door, paused. And Elena, write to your mother. Tell her you are alive. Tell her you are pregnant. Tell her you are coming home. Elena nodded. For the first time since the telegram arrived, she felt something besides grief. She felt purpose. The next morning, Elena walked into the mess hall. Sullivan was there, serving breakfast, same as always. She got her tray, walked over to him. Private Sullivan. He looked up, uncertain, waiting. Thank you. Elena met his eyes directly. For everything, for the kindness, for the truth, for treating me like a human being when you had every reason not to. Sullivan's face softened. You're welcome, Miss Hartman. Elena, she corrected. You can call me Elena. She carried her tray to her table, sat down, ate every bite. The guilt was still there. It would always be there. But she was learning to carry it, to let it fuel purpose instead of paralysis. Across the room, Katharina watched. She had been watching for days, seeing the change in Elena, the breaking and the becoming. That afternoon, she approached Elena in the garden. You are different. Elena looked up from the roses she was tending. Sullivan had taught her gardening, something to do with her hands while her mind healed. I received news. My father is dead. Katharina nodded slowly. I heard. I am sorry. Thank you. They stood in silence for a moment. Two women who had been on opposite sides of an ideological war. Now just two women. Survivors. Nothing more. How do you do it? Katharina asked finally. Accept their kindness without feeling like a traitor. Elena considered the question carefully. I stopped thinking of it as their kindness. Sullivan's brother died fighting us. Captain Morrison's nephew never came home from Europe. The women in town who knitted our mittens lost sons and husbands to German bullets. She pulled a weed from the rosebed. They have every reason to hate us, but they chose differently. That is not American kindness. That is human kindness. And if humans can choose kindness after everything that happened, then maybe the world is not as hopeless as we thought. Katharina was quiet for a long moment. My son is in a Soviet labor camp. If he survives, I want to raise him differently than I was raised, than my husband was raised. Then do it. Elena echoed Greta's words. Start now. Start by learning English. Start by accepting that we were wrong. Start by becoming the mother your son will need. Katharina nodded slowly. Will you teach me the English lessons? I have been too proud to ask. Elena smiled, genuine, warm. Of course. That evening, the entire camp gathered for dinner. Not just the prisoners, the American staff too, guards and cooks and medical personnel. All sitting together, eating the same food. Sullivan stood up, tapped his glass. I got an announcement. In 2 weeks, the first group of ladies will be heading home. Repatriation is finally starting. Murmurs ran through the room. Excitement, fear, joy, grief. Home. After everything. They were finally going home. Elena pressed her hand against her belly. Sophia kicked. They were going home. But home would never be the same. They would never be the same. And maybe that was exactly the point. In part 4, Elena returns to the ruins of Berlin. She finds her mother barely alive. She gives birth to Sophia in a basement apartment with no heat. And 30 years later, she receives an unexpected visitor from Georgia. Private James Sullivan kept his promise. He never forgot. And the story of Camp Rustin is about to come full circle in a way neither of them could have imagined. October 1945. 43 German women arrived at Camp Rustin expecting brutality. They found hot showers, apple pie, a red-haired farm boy from Georgia who lost his brother to German bullets but chose kindness anyway. Elena Hartmann watched her ideology shatter. Katharina Becker, the fiercest true believer, finally broke when she learned her husband was executed for war crimes. By March 1946, the women had transformed. They spoke English. They laughed with their former enemies. They understood that kindness was not weakness. Elena carried a child. Sophia, wisdom born from suffering. Now repatriation begins. The women are going home. To ruins, to hunger, to a Germany that no longer exists. But this story has one final chapter, 30 years in the making. And it proves that some seeds take decades to bloom. May 1946. The transport ship crossed the Atlantic in reverse. Elena stood at the railing, watched America disappear behind the horizon. Her hand rested on her swollen belly. 7 months pregnant. Too far along to travel safely, but she had insisted. Her mother was dying. The last letter had made that clear. Anna Hartmann was 52 years old and weighed less than 80 pounds. Tuberculosis, malnutrition, a body that had simply given up. Elena had to get home, had to see her mother before the end. Sullivan had come to the dock in New York, stood there in his pressed uniform, held out a package wrapped in brown paper. For the baby. Elena took it, did not open it. Will I see you again? Sullivan smiled, that same gentle expression from the first day. I don't know, but I'll write. Every month. And if you ever need anything. He pressed a card into her hand, an address in Georgia, his family's farm. You got people now, Elena. Don't forget that. She did not cry. She had cried enough. Instead, she reached up and kissed his cheek, quickly, before she could change her mind. Thank you, for everything. Then she walked onto the ship. Did not look back. Looking back would have broken her. Berlin, June 1946. Elena did not recognize her city. The train station was rubble. The streets were craters. Buildings stood like broken teeth against the gray sky. Everywhere she looked, destruction. Absolute, complete, final. She walked for 3 hours. Her feet bled. Her back screamed. The baby kicked constantly, as if protesting the journey. Finally, she found the address. A basement apartment in what had once been a residential building. The upper floors were gone, just walls and sky. She climbed down the stairs, knocked on the door. It opened. Her mother stood there, or what remained of her mother. Anna Hartmann had always been a strong woman, tall, proud, beautiful in the way of German housewives who took pride in their homes and families. Now she was a skeleton with skin, hollow cheeks, sunken eyes, hair that had gone completely white. Elena, the voice was barely a whisper. Mama. They fell into each other's arms, both crying, both shaking, both holding on like drowning women gripping driftwood. You're alive, Anna kept repeating. You're alive, you're alive. I'm here, Mama, I'm home. Elena pulled back, looked at her mother's face, saw death waiting there, patient, inevitable. I brought you something. She reached into her bag, pulled out a package. Chocolate, real chocolate. She had saved her rations for weeks, traded with other prisoners, accumulated this treasure for exactly this moment. Anna stared at the chocolate like it was made of gold. Where did you get this? The Americans. Elena pressed it into her mother's hands. They gave us food, Mama. Real food. Every day. Anna's face crumpled. Tears streamed down her hollow cheeks. I prayed you were being treated well, but I was so afraid. They were kind to us. Elena guided her mother to a chair, sat down across from her. Kinder than we deserved. That night, Elena told her mother everything. The hot showers, the apple pie, Sullivan and his dead brother, Katharina's resistance and eventual breaking, the Christmas gifts from strangers, the telegram about Ernst. Anna listened, did not interrupt. Cried when Elena described eating turkey while her father starved to death. It's not your fault, Anna said firmly. Ernst would never blame you. He would be glad you were safe. How do you know? Because that's what fathers do. They want their children to survive, no matter what. Elena looked down at her belly, at Sophia, at the child she would raise in this ruined world. I want to be a different kind of mother, she said quietly. I want to raise her without the lies we believed. Anna nodded slowly. Then do it. Start now. Start with the truth. Sophia was born on August 15, 1946. The labor lasted 14 hours. There was no hospital, no doctor, just a midwife who had delivered babies during the worst of the bombing, and a grandmother who refused to let death take her before meeting her granddaughter. Elena screamed through the final contractions, pushed with strength she did not know she had. And then a tiny voice cried out in that basement apartment. A girl. Perfect. Alive. Elena held her daughter for the first time, looked into those unfocused blue eyes, felt love so overwhelming it erased everything else. Sophia, she whispered, your name means wisdom, and you will be wiser than any of us. Anna lived long enough to hold her granddaughter, 2 months, long enough to see Sophia smile for the first time, long enough to tell Elena she was proud of her. She died in her sleep on October 3, 1946. Peaceful, ready. Elena buried her mother next to an empty grave marked with Karl's name. 3 Hartmanns. Father, son, mother. Only Elena remained, and Sophia. The future. The years that followed were brutal. Elena worked as a translator for the American occupation forces. Ironic. The same skills that had served the Wehrmacht now served its conquerors. But the work paid. And the pay meant food. And food meant Sophia would survive. She wrote to Sullivan every month. He wrote back. His letters arrived like clockwork. Updates from Georgia. His mother's peach cobbler. His sister Emma's teaching career. The farm. The lightning bugs. A world so different from Berlin's ruins, it might as well have been another planet. In 1948, Elena met a man, Karl Weber, a widower with 2 children. He had lost his wife to typhus, his home to bombs, his faith to everything else. They did not love each other. Not at first. But they needed each other, and sometimes need is enough. They married in 1949. Elena became stepmother to 2 children. Karl became father to Sophia. They rebuilt. Slowly. Painfully. One brick at a time. Sullivan's letters kept coming, even after Elena wrote to tell him she had married. Even after she explained she had found a new life. "I'm happy for you," he wrote back. "That's all I ever wanted, for you to be happy." Sophia grew up knowing 2 languages, German from her mother, English from the letters that arrived every month from Georgia. She asked about Sullivan constantly. "Who is this man who writes to you, Mama? A friend?" Elena always answered, "The best friend I ever had." "Why doesn't he visit?" "Because some friendships exist better on paper, where distance cannot hurt them." But Elena knew the real reason. She was afraid. Afraid that seeing Sullivan again would reopen wounds that had finally healed. Afraid that the feelings she had buried would resurface. Afraid that the life she had built with Karl would crumble if she let the past back in. So she kept her distance. And Sullivan respected it. Until 1975. The letter arrived in September. Elena was 54 years old. Karl had died 3 years earlier. Heart attack. Quick. Merciful. Sophia was 29, married, pregnant with her first child. Elena was about to become a grandmother. The letter was different from the others. Longer. More careful. Dear Elena, I'm coming to Berlin, October, for the 30-year anniversary of the war's end. There's a memorial service at the former Camp Rustin location. They've turned it into a museum. I've been asked to speak. About what we did there. About the women. About you. I understand if you don't want to see me. 30 years is a long time. We are different people now. But if you're willing, I would very much like to meet Sophia. I've watched her grow up through your letters. I feel like I know her. Even though we've never met. Whatever you decide, I will understand. Your friend, always Jim. Elena read the letter 3 times. Then she booked a flight to Louisiana. October 1975. Camp Rustin Memorial. Elena stepped off the plane in New Orleans, felt the humidity wrap around her like a warm blanket. Remembered everything. Sullivan was waiting at the airport. 60 years old now, hair gone gray, face weathered by decades of farm work. But his eyes, those green eyes, they were exactly the same. They stood looking at each other for a long moment. 30 years collapsed into nothing. Miss Hartman. Elena, she corrected. You earned the right to call me Elena a long time ago. He smiled. That same gentle expression. You look good. I look old. You look alive. That's what matters. They drove to Camp Rustin. Or what had been Camp Rustin. The barracks were gone. The mess hall was gone. In their place stood a small museum, a memorial garden, rose bushes blooming in the Louisiana sun. Elena stopped walking when she saw the roses. You planted these? 20 years ago. Sullivan nodded. When they first started talking about a memorial, I asked if I could contribute something. They said yes. So I planted roses. He bent down, touched one of the blooms. Same variety we planted together. In that garden behind the administrative building. Remember? Elena remembered. She had cried over those roses. watered them with tears while her father died in a Soviet camp. I remember everything. The memorial service was small, a dozen veterans, a few local officials, some historians who had studied the prisoner re-education program. Sullivan spoke last. He stood at the podium, looked out at the audience. His voice was steady. In October 1945, 43 German women arrived at this camp. They expected torture. They expected brutality. They expected everything their propaganda had promised about American cruelty. He paused. Found Elena in the audience. Instead, they found hot showers, clean clothes, food, and people who chose to see them as human beings instead of enemies. His voice grew stronger. I lost my brother David 3 months before the war ended. He was 22 years old. He died near Berlin. I had every reason to hate those women. Every right to hate them. But hate is easy. Kindness is hard. And David would have wanted me to choose the hard thing. He looked down at his notes, set them aside. 30 years ago, I made a choice. I chose to treat my enemies with dignity. I chose to offer kindness when I could have offered cruelty. I chose to see people instead of targets. He pointed to the rose garden. That choice saved lives, not just German lives, American lives, the lives of everyone who learned that enemies can become friends, that hate can become understanding, that the cycle of violence can be broken. He stepped back from the podium. Those 43 women went home. They told their families what happened here. They raised children who knew the truth about Americans. They became ambassadors for peace in a nation that had been built on war. His eyes found Elena again. One of those women is here today. Elena Hartmann Weber. She traveled from Berlin to be here. She raised a daughter who is now raising her own child, 3 generations, all touched by what happened in this camp. Elena felt tears streaming down her face. Did not try to stop them. I didn't save Elena, Sullivan concluded. Elena saved me. She showed me that forgiveness is possible, that redemption is real, that humans can choose differently even after everything we've done to each other. He stepped away from the podium. That's the legacy of Camp Rustin. Not buildings or programs or policies. People. Changed people. Better people. People who chose kindness when they had every reason to choose hate. After the service, Elena and Sullivan walked through the rose garden. Sophia had sent a photograph. Elena's granddaughter, due in December. What will you name her? Sullivan asked. Anna, after my mother. Elena smiled. And her middle name will be Grace. Sullivan nodded, understood. Grace, he repeated. That's perfect. They stood in silence for a moment. 30 years of letters, 30 years of distance, finally bridged. I need to tell you something, Elena said quietly. Something I never wrote in the letters. Sullivan waited. You saved my life, not just my physical life, my soul. When I arrived here, I was a believer, a true Nazi. I hated Americans. I hated Jews. I hated everyone I had been taught to hate. She touched one of the roses. You showed me that everything I believed was a lie. You showed me that the enemy could be kind, that humans could choose differently, that hate was not inevitable. She turned to face him. I raised Sophia with your values, not German values, not American values, human values, kindness, dignity, forgiveness. Every lesson you taught me I passed to her, and she will pass them to Anna Grace. Sullivan's eyes were wet. He did not hide it. That's all I ever wanted. His voice cracked. For the kindness to ripple outward, to touch people I would never meet. Elena took his hand, held it tight. It did. It has. It will continue for generations. They stood there in the rose garden. 2 old friends. Enemies who became family. Proof that the worst of humanity can be answered with the best. Elena returned to Berlin. Sullivan returned to Georgia. They never saw each other again in person. But the letters continued, every month. Until Sullivan died peacefully in his sleep in 1989. The same year, the Berlin Wall fell. Elena lived to see Germany reunified. She died in 2001 surrounded by Sophia Anna Grace and a great-grandson named James. After James Sullivan, the Camp Rustin Memorial still stands today. Every October, visitors come to walk through the Rose Garden, to read the stories of 43 women who arrived expecting torture and found transformation instead. A plaque near the entrance reads, "Here enemies became friends, hate became understanding, and one American farm boy proved that kindness is the most powerful weapon ever created." In memory of Private James Sullivan and the 43 German women whose lives he changed. May we always remember the enemy is never the person before us. The enemy is the hatred that makes us forget their humanity. This is the story of Camp Rustin, of Elena Hartman and James Sullivan, of a torn uniform and a reaching hand and a choice that rippled through generations. From one act of kindness in October 1945 to a great-grandson named James in 2001. 3 generations of people who learned that hate is easy, but kindness is stronger. And if you remember only one thing from this story, remember this. Every person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Every enemy has a family who loves them. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, creates ripples that can change the world. Private James Sullivan never fired a shot at Camp Rustin, but he won the most important battle of his life. He proved that humans can choose differently, and that proof is still growing. In rose gardens, in children named Grace, in the simple revolutionary idea that all people deserve dignity. That is the power of kindness. That is the legacy of Camp Rustin. That is how we stop the machine.